Alright, on problem number 33, it says which number line shows the correct representation of negative square root of 84. So this is another one of those where we need to convert this to a decimal, and then we can find its place on the number line. So let's go ahead and go to our calculator. Alright, if we put that in, we will put the negative square root of 84, hit enter, and it gives us negative 9.165. So if you write that down, it's negative 9.165. And so what we want to do is try to find on the number line this value. So we know it's going to be right here by negative 9. And since it's 1.165, that means it's going to be a little bit past 9. Because it's greater, it's going towards 12. So this one's behind the 9, so that's less than, so it's impossible. This one A doesn't even have it near the 9, so it can't be A. C has it a little bit after 9, so that looks about right. And if we check D, it doesn't have it over here, it has it at the positive 9, so it can't be D. So C is the correct answer. I noticed a lot of you, and I say a lot of you, maybe 30 or 40% again on this one ended up picking B. And I think what you did, you saw that it was right before 9, but you got to remember that that 0.165 means that it's actually greater than 9. And when we're talking about negative values, the higher that number is, the further to the left it's going to be. So that it had to be to the left of the negative 9. Keep that in mind for next time. Alright, on number 35, it says Juanita buys fruit and pancakes for herself and her family at a school breakfast. She buys 6 items in all, so she's going to buy 6 items. Each piece of fruit costs $1, and each pancake costs $2. And she spends a total of $8. The system of equations that represents this situation is graphed below. So let's move it down and look at it. It says how many of each type of food does Juanita buy? I want to give you a tip on something. Anytime on the STAR test or even on one of these benchmarks, if it's in regards to a system of equations, it is always 100% of the time going to have something to do with this point of intersection. So I just want you to keep that in mind. If you have 2 lines graphed and it's talking about a system of equations, you're always going to be looking at the point of intersection. So that goes to 2 and that goes to 4. So whatever we do, no matter what these statements are, it's going to have something to do with 2 and 4, that ordered pair. So let's take a look. It says how many of each type of food does Juanita buy? So what type of food does she buy? Okay, well, we have 2 down here, and that's going to be pancakes. And we have 4 up here, and that's going to be pieces of fruit. So she's going to buy 2 pancakes and 4 pieces of fruit. So we just need to look through these and see which one of these statements says that. So it says 1 pancake. Well, here it said 2, so it can't be A. 4 pancakes, well, that's not right. If it was 4, it would have been over here. 3 pancakes, that's not right. 2 pancakes and 4 pieces of fruit. D is the correct answer. Alright, in this problem, number 36, it says that the transformation rule, x and y, and the rule is x over 3 and y over 3, is applied to the figure shown. Which are the final coordinates? So what we need to do is we're going to use this rule, and on this one we want to use it on all 4 points of our shape so that we can check all 4 ordered pairs. So let me show you what I mean. So if our rule is x and y, we have x over 3 is going to be our change, and y over 3. Now remember, anytime that you're multiplying or dividing x and y inside of here, anytime those operations are occurring, this is going to be a dilation. So it's either going to grow or it's going to shrink. And in this case, since we're dividing it by 3, that's telling us we're going to get a smaller part of it. So it's going to shrink. And let's go ahead and take a look. So if my x value, I'm going to start writing x value. So I'm going to do my 4 points. We have 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here. And you don't have to label them, but just for simplicity, I'm going to go ahead and label them A, B, C, D. So you know which one I'm pulling. I'm going to do A first. And if I do A looks like we go over 3. And then we go down, looks like negative 3. Now, notice that these lines aren't counted by 1. Do you see that? It counts by 2's. And same way here, it counts by 2's. So be careful with that. Make sure that you're writing down the right numbers, or you could get everything wrong. So I'm going to go ahead and do my next one. I'm going to do B. So it looks like we go over 3 and up 3. So once again, we're going to have a positive 3, 3 this time. And for C, I'm going to go over negative 6 and up. Looks like 3. So negative 6 and 3. And for D, I'm going to go over negative 6 and down negative 3. So we got our numbers now. We're going to use this rule up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to plug in my value for x. So my x value right here is 3. So I'm going to put a 3 on top, just like there's an x on top. And then put my 3 underneath it. And for y, I'm going to put my negative 3 on top. And then my 3 underneath it. And so a prime, I'm going to have 1, negative 1. So let's go ahead and do B. So if we did B the same way, right, we have 3 and 3, so 3 over 3 and 3 over 3. So B prime, I'm going to write it to the side right here. B prime is going to be 1, 1. So positive 1, 1. Then I'm going to do C prime. I have a negative 6 over 3, and I have a 3 over 3. And so C prime is going to be, looks like negative 2 and positive 1. And then D right here, if I were to work it out, I have negative 6 for my x over my 3, and I have negative 3 over 3, and that's going to give me a D prime of negative 2 and negative 1. So just to make these stand out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and highlight them real quick with a map color. And that's B prime, A prime, B prime, C prime, and D prime. And then we just need to see which one of these sets have those ordered pairs. So let's take a look. So first numbers here, 9, 9. Well, none of these have 9, 9. So it's not going to be F. G, we have a 2, 1, and it shows to be a positive 2 and positive 1. We have 2 with a 2, but they're both negative, so it won't be G. Then for H, we have a positive 1, 1. And over here we got a positive 1, 1 for our B prime. And we have a negative 2, 1. There's a negative 2, 1. Negative 2, negative 1. Negative 2, negative 1. And then we have a 1, negative 1. And there's our 1, negative 1. So H is the correct answer. Notice if we looked at J and went further, it has 18 and 9. And none of these numbers right here had 18. So we know that that's impossible. So H is the correct answer. And that's how you find it, by using the rule. Alright, in this problem on number 37, it says Lily is comparing taxi fares for 2 companies. EasyGo, underline it, cabs, charges a fixed charge of $3.50, we're going to box that, plus $2 per mile travel. So this is my y-intercept, and this is my unit rate. And let's see, it says Safe Journey Taxi, underline, charges a service of $4 per mile. So notice this one right here, it doesn't say that they have a y-intercept, it's just $4 per mile, so this is just going to be 0 for the y-intercept. And it says, what inequality can be used to find how many miles Lily must travel to make the total cost with easy cabs less than the total cost of Safe Journey? Okay, so let's write that out with words first. And I noticed not very many of you did this. Remember, this is, I told you, always write it out with words first and then make your equation. So what we want to do is she's trying to find an inequality that can be used to show how many miles Lily must travel to make the total cost with EasyGo. So I'm going to put EasyGo less, so that's got to be less than the total cost of Safe Journey. And we'll call them SJ. So we know that EasyGo has to be less than Safe Journey. So let's go and write our equations. In the beginning it says EasyGo charges $3.50 plus $2.50 per mile. So let's go and write that. We have $3.50 plus $2.50. So I'll put 2.50x. Notice I'm going to bring down this less than sign. That must be less than what we pay with Safe Journey, who charges just $4 per mile, which is 4x. So now that I have my equation made, we just need to look and see which equation looks like this. Which one says 350 plus 250x is less than 4x? And right here on A, 350 plus 250x is less than 4x. And A is the correct answer. Always put your words in the inequality first and then write the equation underneath each one of those labels. And that way you won't get it mixed up. Alright, in this question on number 39, it says the Jonases drive from their home to the shopping mall. They take two roads that meet at a right angle, as shown in the diagram. However, a new direct road is being constructed as shown. By how much would their traveling distance be reduced after the new road is constructed, and round to the nearest kilometer if necessary? Well, here's the existing roads, right? This dotted line is the new road. And if it makes a right angle, there's our right angle. This is really just our hypotenuse. So these are our legs, and it doesn't matter which one you call A or B. Remember, they're interchangeable because they're going to be added together anyways. But I'm going to call that top one A and the bottom one B. So all we need to do is determine this distance. Okay, and it'll let us know the reduction. So let's go ahead and work that out. So we're going to have A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And our A squared is going to be 15 squared plus 36 squared is equal to C squared. And at this point, I would not, you could do this on your own. I mean, you could just do it in pieces, but I would just use numerical solve. So let's go over to our calculator and use numerical solve. Alright, we're going to hit menu, go down to option 3 for algebra, and option 1 for numerical solve. And we're going to do 15 squared plus 36 squared equals C squared. And we're going to put comma C. Going to hit enter, and that's going to give us 39. So let's document that right quick. So we have C is equal to 39. So now that we have this value, I know it's tempting to go ahead and plug that in, but we have to look and say, what did they ask? And they said, by how much would their traveling distance be reduced after the new road is constructed? So if we're talking about how much it's going to be reduced, well, first of all, they had to drive 15 plus 36, right? So we'd have to add that together. They drove 36 plus 15. So that's going to be 11, and that's going to be 51. So before they were driving 51 kilometers to go. Well, now, just doing this shortcut that cuts across, which is our hypotenuse, they only drive 39. So if we want to know how much it's going to be reduced, we have to take this value and subtract it from this value. So 51 minus 39. And if we subtract that, we end up with 2 and 1. So there's a reduction of 12 kilometers. So now what we need to do is we just need to write that on there. So we can go ahead and fill that in. And that would be 12.00 kilometers. And make sure you bubble that in. It'd be 1, 2, 0, 0. What I will say is on this problem, a lot of you got 39. A lot of you solved for the right triangle. And you got the correct answer because I looked at your papers. But what you forgot to do was subtract it from the distance of these two roads, which is the previous distance they used to travel to get there. Alright, so now we're going to do number 40. And on number 40, it says Hotel A charges $140 per night for the first two people, so it's for the first two people, and $10 for each additional person. So that's a unit rate. And this right here is my y-intercept. It says Hotel B charges $80 per night for the first two people and $20 for each additional person. At how many additional people per night is the cost for the two rooms the same? So this is going to be a system of linear equations, and what we want to do is we want to go ahead and set up two equations, make them equal to one another, and then we're going to solve for x, which tells us what our intersection is. So let's go ahead and let's take a look. We're going to have Hotel A is equal to Hotel B. And Hotel A says $140 per night for the first two people and then $10 for each additional person. So what we have is we have 140 plus 10 for each additional person, so that's going to be 10x, is equal to Hotel B, which is $80 plus $20 per person. And all we need to do is solve for x, and it'll tell us our intersection. So that's one way you could have done it. We could have also graphed the two equations and looked for the intersection. And we'll do it both ways in our calculator so you can see that it comes out to be the same. So let's go to our calculator, and I want you to put this in yourself to get some practice and check and see how we get this answer. Alright, first I'm going to graph it. So if you go to menu and go down to graph and hit enter, you can hit tab and we can put in our first equation. So we have 10x plus 140, and I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. It's going to graph that for me, and then we're going to go and put the second equation, and it's going to be 20x plus 80. There it is. Notice we don't see the intersection on this one. We would have to zoom out, so let's go ahead and go Windows Zoom, and let's zoom out because I want to see the intersection. Okay, and I can kind of see it now there. It's a little hard to see, but we're there. So now what we want to do is hit menu, analyze graph, and we're going to find the intersection. It's option 4. Once we do that, remember, hit enter, and then what you want to do is you want to drag it across, and if you look, our x value right here, I'm going to move this mouse so you can see it. My x value is 6. So 6 is my answer, because whenever you do the intersection, we're looking for that x value. Now remember, I told you we could also just do numerical solve. So you may find numerical solve easier. Let's go ahead and go to numerical solve, and let's do it that route. So we go to calculate. I can go to menu, go down to algebra and numerical solve, and I'm going to type in the whole equation. So we had 140 plus 10x, and if you notice when I put the equation in, I did 10x plus 140. It's the same thing. I just switched those two terms, but I'm going to put it in just like we wrote it, and I'm going to set that equal to 80 plus 20x, and then we want to solve for x, so we're going to hit comma x, and it's still going to give us 6. Watch, and there you have your answer. The answer is 6. So if we go ahead and write that in, no matter if we did it by graphing two equations and looking at the intersection and solving for x, or if we went ahead and just put this in numerical solve, which is probably faster, we still got the same answer, which is 6. That's what x is. And so with that being said, that's going to be, it says that how many additional people per night is the cost for the 2 rooms the same? Well, whenever you have 6 people. So let's go ahead and plug that number in. So we have 600. We're going to fill this in, 6, 0, and 0. Alright, we are almost done. On 41, it says Selena deposited money into her savings account to save money for vacation. The table shows her account balance during March. If Selena creates a graph for this data, what will be the slope? So all we need to do is find the slope. So don't let it confuse you with these words in here. It has March, but remember, we're really just focusing on the numbers. Now, like I always said, what is it asking us to check? And it wants to know, it says that she deposited the money in there, and it wants to know what the slope is. So think about it. The money, right, is what's being measured, and the time is what's occurring. So depending on, and that's going to be the independent. As time goes on, it changes our savings. So this is going to be our x, and typically time is almost always going to be your x value, and then cost is going to be our y. So remember, when we find slope, right, we find rise over run, or y over x. So let's go ahead and let's check these real quick. My change from 11 to 15 is 4, and my change from 200 to 260 is 60. So if I do y over x, I have 60 over 4. And if I check that, we can put that in our calculator. The other way that we could do it, because I want to show you both ways, I still think my preferred way would be for you to go ahead and use the slope formula, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And we could say, okay, we can call this our x1, we can call this y1, we can call this x2, and call this y2. So if we plug those numbers in, I have 260 minus 200 over 15 minus 11. And let's put both of these into our calculator and let's work them out, and we'll find our slope right quick. Alright, so if I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to do the first one. We have 60, and it's going to be over 4. I'm going to put a decimal after it because I want to make sure I get a decimal value in case it's not a whole number. And it's 15. Then if I did it the other way, right, the y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, I would end up with, I'm going to put my fraction bar, parentheses, and I got 260 minus 200 over 15 minus 11, and I'm going to hit enter, and we get the same thing. So two different ways, but do whichever you prefer. But you can never go wrong with the two ordered pair, and I like remembering that because you'll use that quite frequently in high school. It'll get you prepared for what you're going to be doing pretty soon. So let's go ahead and write that value down. Our answer was 15. That is our slope. And let's go ahead and put that in our griddable. So we got 15.00, 1 and a 5. And let's move on to our next question. Alright, number 42. It says a cylinder has a radius of 14 inches and a height of 10 inches. Okay, so it's a cylinder. It has a radius of 14 inches and a height of 10 inches. A rectangular prism has square bases with the side lengths of 8 inches. Okay. And then it says two figures have the same surface area. So they got the same surface area. What is the approximate height of the rectangular prism? So we need to find the height and round your answer to the nearest inch. So again, this one's a little tricky, just real similar to the one that we had with the volume with the cylinder and the sphere, which was the ball. So let's go ahead and first, since we got all our information, let's go ahead and solve for the cylinder. So remember, the first step is you always want to draw this out. So you should have drawn your cylinder out. I've seen some of you did, but some of you didn't, so make sure that you are doing that. If it's the radius is just going to be half of this, so it's just going to be this side. And I probably shouldn't have drawn that all the way across. Remember, it's just going to be half. And it says the radius is 14 inches, so R equals 14. My height was 10 inches. That's everything I need right there. And then it says there is a rectangular prism. I'm going to draw that one over here. And a rectangular prism is going to look something like this right here. We're going to have our edges all connected. And on the rectangular prism, it said that it had square bases with side lengths of 8. So I'm going to say, okay, just say that's 8, and this one's 8. And I'm going to say this is my base. I'm going to shade in right here. It's sitting on that base. So we have 8 and 8. And it says they have the same surface area. So if they have the same surface area, my SA for both of them is equal to the same thing. So let's find that. So remember, in order to find total surface area, because it didn't say lateral, so we got to do total, it's pH plus 2b. And it's the same thing goes for both of these. The only thing that changes are big B, because here our base is length times width, and here our base is a circle, so it's going to be pi r squared. So let's go ahead and find these items. We need to find P, H, and big B. And we got P, H, and big B. So the perimeter of a circle, remember that's just the perimeter of a circle is the outside of a circle, which is also known as the circumference. We find that by doing 2 pi times r, which is 14. My height is equal to 10. The area of my base is pi r squared, so it's going to be pi times 14 squared. And that's going to give me my SA, or my total surface area. This formula was included on your star chart that has the formulas. So let's go ahead and let's go over to our calculator and work this out. Alright, so I'm going to have my perimeter, which is going to be 2 pi times 14. I'm going to go outside of that. Now I'm going to put times my height, because it's pH, times my height, which is h, and that's going to be 10, plus 2 times the area of my base, because we have two bases, a circle on top and on bottom, and that's going to be pi r, which is 14, squared. Going to hit enter, and it's 2111.15. So let's go ahead and document that right quick. So we got 2,111.15. So that's going to be the surface area. Let me draw a line through that. And remember, that's also going to be the surface area for this one over here. So we're not done yet because it wants us to actually find the height. We're looking for h. So because they're not giving us h on this one. Now we do know that the base of this rectangular prism, that it's a square. So we know that all four sides are going to be 8. So my perimeter on this one is simply going to be 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8. Now you could have added those up in your head, but I'm just going to write them out so you can see the process. And that means that all four sides of my rectangular prism, this base that I've shaded, are 8 because it's a square. We don't know the height, but I know how to find the area of the base, right? The area of the base is just going to be 8 times 8. So we can go ahead and plug this into our calculator with what we do know. So let me write out our formula. We have the surface area of that shape is equal to pH plus 2b. We know what the SA is because it said the surface area is the same as the cylinder. So we know that that's 2,111.15. We know what P is, right? It's going to be that 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8. And we know our H is going to just be the letter H, right? Because remember, they didn't give us that value. Let me move this up just a little bit. And then we know that we're going to multiply the base by 2, so it's plus 2 times the area of the base, and the area of the base is going to be 8 times 8. So times 8 times 8. And now what I would do, since I got this whole formula written out, notice, yeah, you're going to say, well, we can't, without H, how are we going to get this number? But what we're really doing, we're just trying to find H, and I would put this in a calculator just like I have it in Numerical Solve and solve for H, and it'll tell us what H is. So let's go ahead and do that right quick. Alright, I'm going to go Menu, I'm going to go down to Algebra, Numerical Solve, and we're going to go ahead and put in what we do know. And what we do know is that we have 2,111.15, and that is equal to, and we had that 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8. So I'm going to go ahead and add those together, because in Numerical Solve sometimes if you try to put a bunch of parts like that, I have had some issues, and you can't use parentheses in here for some reason. So 4 times 8 is going to be 32, so that's going to be 32. And then we're going to multiply that to H, so it's going to be 32 times H. And then it's going to be plus 2 times 8, which is the same thing as 64. So 2 times 64. And then I want to go ahead and put comma, and I'm going to put my H in there. And I'm going to hit enter. And it says that the height must be 61.97. So I'm going to go ahead and let's write that down. .97. And if you're wondering, remember how I told you I just went ahead and added these together. So these 4 8s gave me 32. And 8 times 8 was 64. That's how I come up with that 32 times H plus 2 times 64. And it tells us, if you look up here, that is a decimal that we have. It says record your answer and fill in the bubbles in a griddable. On the back of your answer sheet, be sure to use the correct place value. And then they have this note down here that says round your answer to the nearest inch. Well, if we're rounding 61.97 to the nearest inch, right? There's our 9. And we have this 7 right here. So if you look at this, we'd round this up to 62 either way. So even if we weren't rounded to an inch, which inch would be that 1. So we're going to round it up to 62. It would have to go 62 either way. So let's go ahead and put it is 62 inches in height. Now, if you're doubting this and you go, well, you know what? I'm not sure. That confused me. I'm not sure that that's right. How can I double check it? Well, you could always just plug in 62 for the height and see if you come up with roughly the same answer. So let's do that just for grins to go ahead and get some practice with it. So let's go ahead and say, okay, we have the 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8 times our height, which is 62, plus 2 times the area of the base, which is 2 times 8 times 8. So that's our P times our H plus our 2B. And it gives us 2,112. really, really close, right? We did round it up, and that's why it's a little bit higher. It wouldn't have been so high if we hadn't rounded it the way we did. So we know that is the correct answer, and we're done with this. So go ahead, make sure you fill out that form for your test corrections, and then turn that into me sometime this week so I can go ahead and put in your test correction grade and bump your grade up for your average.